Bishop.
And I'm Dr. Steph.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of our life, our journey.
Our truth.
So grateful to have you connected on today. And we thank God for all of you that watch this channel every single week. It means a lot to us and we appreciate it. We read the comments and we appreciate you so much. Now, while you're here, make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you
Subscribe and
please
share
do.
with your family and friends.
Absolutely, because we want to get this to as many folks as possible. We want to create a space where people can come and just be empowered and blessed by our story as we try to share transparently with you. And many of you let us know every single week that you are blessed by this platform. Thank you in advance for that. Now, make sure you follow Dr. Steph. Follow her at Dr. Steph Walker out there on Instagram, Facebook, all that. Follow me at Joseph Walker 3. And we'd love for you to get our book, and we have a book we call Becoming a Couple of Destiny. Make sure you get our merch, all that good stuff out there at josephwalker3.org. It will be a blessing to you. So we're grateful and thankful for the opportunity to share with you today. Now, we got a topic today. Y'all saw the headline. Don't talk to me like that. What's wrong with you?
Really?
Yeah. Who you think I am? You ever had that happen in a relationship? Like, wait a minute. Don't we have children? And I ain't one. You ever had that in your relationship? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, because communication 2.0 is about really helping you elevate your understanding of how to communicate with your significant other, your spouse, etc. Why is that important? Because we discovered along the way there is a marriage language. There's a marriage
100%.
language, right?
The language that will keep you married, in other words.
Boom, boom. So we want to be honest and transparent even about some of the struggles we had. And I'll open up with that because
Yeah.
I had some real issues.
Problems.
Let me tell you something. I couldn't take it. I was like, you're not gonna talk to me like that. And really what happened is that her intent was good. But sometimes the delivery, it triggered things in me.
Right.
And so
Say that.
the delivery of what she was saying caused me to view myself in some emasculated space. And
Well,
I
time
began
out.
to
So,
I began to clap back. I did.
no,
Like,
well,
that's the
so if
see.
we're going to be truthful, so sometimes I would say things to him that were strictly above board, but because of his history and his personal trauma and drama and other stressors that had nothing to do with me, he took what I was saying, interpreted what I was saying based on something that had nothing to do with me, and turned it into something negative. And so as he's projecting back to me, I'm like, what is wrong with you? Where is this coming from? I didn't say that. Like, how are you getting from what I said? You're interpreting that I'm somehow treating you like a child, or I'm somehow emasculating you, or I'm somehow speaking to you some kind of weird way. And I was not. Every once in a while, I mean, women, let's, be real. Like every once in a while, you get a little, above, out of character, let's say. But this was happening so much so, like on a regular basis, that we had to go to therapy for this, because I'm like, you are constantly accusing me of being something or someone that I'm not in terms of our conversation. We need to know where this is coming from. Like, let's get to the root of the issue and the root of the problem. And so saying all this to say, sometimes your dialogue really isn't always about what you say or how you say it. It's about how the person receives it. And sometimes it's not even about your personal delivery that determines how they receive it. Sometimes it's about personal history, personal trauma. And so that's why it's so important to get to know your spouse, get to know that person if you're seriously dating, sort of their background and the things that they've been through or what have you, because by getting to the bottom of that, that allowed us to walk this thing out together so that I could speak to him and approach him in a way that he could receive it, so that it wouldn't trigger those negative emotions and feelings from the past.
Well said. I mean, well said. And it's true. I mean, the reality is that I, recognized that I had some personal trauma and things of that nature. And when those moments would happen, it would be like, for me,
like Hiroshima, we would go from like 0 to 50,000. And I'm like, what is going on?
I am not going to let you talk to me like this. You are not going to speak to me like that. And so I began to realize, right, that I had to learn and accept that
Yeah.
trauma and understand how to work through that myself. But also, we had to learn how then to get to know each other
Mhm.
and understand how better to communicate. Because there were times which, her whole thing is, if you speak crazy to me, I'm gonna just come right back at you. And she's just like straight LA Crip,
You
like
cut me, I'm gonna cut you back.
Crip,
Right.
man. Crip. Y'all, one episode that y'all see a Crip walk for real. She
Oh
committed
my
shit.
gosh.
Don't you do that?
No,
You
he's just
no for
kidding,
real. She
but
committed
he
Crip walk. No, not for real. But yeah,
anyway.
but no, for
But
real.
I also had to learn how to speak to you so that you could receive it so that I wouldn't
And
trigger
that's it,
you.
right? Because
Right.
what's important, right? What's important is that you get your point over or that you actually are able to communicate
In
and
a
then
way that it can be received.
that talk
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's it, right? And I think, one of the things Arthur Brooks states in this book that our book club just read, it's a powerful book. He's a psychologist and he and you can explain this better than I can. The lower part of the brain is the limbic, right? Limbic.
Sure.
Right. So, and he says, what happens is that people often don't, because of their personal trauma, they communicate first from that space, all that emotion, and the cortex is the rational, the logical. So you have a person who's being logical with you, but you can't be logical back because you got to filter it through all that trauma and all that emotion, and so therefore, when it comes out, it's just it doesn't make sense.
Basically, he's suggesting that if you can't get past the emotion, you can't have a logical conversation because your
Yeah.
mind can't even operate in the logic because you're trapped in the emotion. And so part of it is understanding that that's the space that you're operating
Yeah.
from, sort of understanding what your own personal triggers are, being honest about those triggers. I think one of the issues for us is that, truth be told, like you weren't very transparent
Yeah.
about what those triggers were or
Yeah.
your history of trauma or what
Yeah.
have you. Like all that came out while we were married, to my
That's a whole nother
surprise, right?
episode, isn't it? Like,
And
yeah,
so I think it works both ways,
yeah,
right? And so, but he's right, and it's not even just about talking to your spouse, right? It's about even in the workplace when you're having conversations with friends or people who aren't even your friends, like trying to understand like how to have civil discourse. And be emotional about conversations, especially when it comes to hot topics or topics that we may think are like taboo to talk about with
yeah,
other people
yeah.
or things like that, like having difficult conversations. Sometimes you have to remove the emotion in order to have just a real robust honest conversation about things.
I found this to be true in professional life.
Mm-hmm.
Being a CEO, being a leader. I see it in people, and
Mm-hmm.
you wanna kind of mentor them around that because what happens is you
Yeah.
have people who are so emotive, right, that they're not able to truly make these rational decisions about what they need to do and how do you do it. And ultimately, what
Mm-hmm.
happens is that they disassociate.
Mm-hmm.
Disassociation becomes a safe space that I
Mm-hmm.
will just shut down. I will remove myself. I will
Mm-hmm.
stop communicating because that becomes a way of coping with
Mm-hmm.
the historical trauma that's been triggered by that event. And I think
Yeah.
disassociation is unhealthy
Yeah.
because that's what happens in relationships, right? Well, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna stop talking. I
I'm
don't
just
want to
going to
talk.
shut
I'm gonna
down.
shut down. Forget it. You
Mm-hmm.
don't hear me, whatever. And so I think
Forget it.
communication, yeah,
Not
forget
worth
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
owning the fact that okay, maybe there's some things that this situation has triggered.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff I need to deal with in the past so that
Mm-hmm.
I can be more effective as a
Yeah.
husband, more
Yeah.
effective as, a
Yeah.
professional, more
Yeah.
effective as a friend.
Yeah.
Because if I disassociate, it's kind of to me, it's kind of a cowardice way
Mm-hmm.
of just saying, I'm gonna just stay
I
like I
quit.
am. I
Yeah.
quit. I'm not gonna work
Well,
on
I
me. Yeah.
think, to play both sides, right? I think to some degree that can be almost a protective mechanism
It
for
is
a
it
lot
is
of
that.
people.
It is that.
In the sense of if I don't know you, if you're a stranger, if I have no ties with you,
Yeah.
if I'm not invested in you and your life, lifestyle, whatever, when you act crazy, you get cut off like a blade, right? And so I'm done with you, you're dead to me, whatever, moving right along, moving into this different space. I mean, that's how this is real, right? Like
Yeah.
that's how people communicate. Like if you're not important and you're not sort of on my trajectory helping me get to point A from point A to point B, then it matters not. moving right along. I'm not going to waste that kind of energy with you. However, that doesn't work in relationships that you're invested in.
That's right.
It doesn't work in friendships, that are platonic. It doesn't, that are real friendship. It doesn't work in family relationships. It doesn't work in spousal relationships, relationships even with your children, right? Those relationships are meaningful. And so to shut down or to cast people away or sort of lock people out is, I don't want to say useless, although it is, but that's not the right word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Is it's not beneficial to either parties, right? What's more beneficial, especially if you care about people, is to give them one the benefit of the doubt, right?
That's good.
And to not assume that they are meaning to hurt and that whatever they're doing, they
That's it.
knew that that was something that would trigger you. Most of the time, they're doing it and they're oblivious to what is going on inside of you, right? And so I think being able to open up, be a little bit vulnerable, sort of say, hey, this is what you did and this is how it made me feel. And give them that opportunity to walk with you through that conversation and through what happened, as opposed to just making the assumption and casting the relationship away. Because I've had, full trend, I've had that happen to me where something were to happen and the person just, disappears and you're like, wait, what happened? And you find out 5 years later or 2 years later or 2 months later that they took something that you said completely out of context.
context, yeah.
Right? And instead of sitting down and taking a moment and say, hey, what happened with that? Based on their own past history and trauma that had nothing to do with you, they cast the relationship away. And I mean, at the end of the day, like when that happens, you kind of probably need to walk away anyway. But that's not the point. The point is that it doesn't have to be that way, and that sometimes relationships that are valuable are worth salvaging.
Yeah, that's good.
And so take the time to basically communicate, learn how to communicate, and be a little bit vulnerable with those people that you love.
Yeah, so I wanna explore something, right?
Yeah.
Just let them eavesdrop. Okay.
Okay.
So one of the things we learned in our marriage,
Yeah.
right, is how we, me being a pastor, I'm often dealing out of the emotional space. You being a physician, particularly in acute situations in neonatology, when you're called into moments, it's a matter of life and death. It's
You can't be emotional
can't be
about it.
emotional about right now. So we come together and we learn early on that when we have situations, you're communicating about certain things, like in a very, because this is how your mind is. Doesn't mean you're not emotional.
Sometimes,
Carrie.
not all
No,
the
no,
time.
I understand. Just
Yeah.
follow my logic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. This is not a general. This is not
Yeah.
a. You're this
But they
kind of
don't know
person.
that, so it's
Yeah,
important
no,
that you
she's
say
not
that.
that kind of person. But I'm
Yeah.
saying, but there are moments in which, for example, when she's doing business or she's mentoring or she's whatever, she is pretty much, if you ask her to tell you the truth, she's gonna say boom, 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 boom. She's not gonna be like, well, let me just go. She's gonna be like boom, 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 boom. And a lot of people can't
And
handle
I'll
it.
say it in love.
Yeah, but a lot of people can't handle
But
that. They
yeah.
can't handle that. They will view that as offense, and that triggers something in them that has nothing to do with you.
But when
Point.
you say a lot of people, are you?
Not a lot of people. Some
Yeah,
people
I
who
wouldn't
engage.
say a lot of people. I think it depends on what you're coming to a person for. And I tell people all the time, don't ask me for the truth unless you want to know the truth. So if you
Facts.
want to know the truth, then feel free to ask
Yeah.
me. And my first question to them is usually, can you handle the truth? Like, be careful what you ask for, right? Because I'm not that person that's going to sugarcoat it. I'll be kind about it, and I won't just give you problems, but I'll also give you solutions and
Yeah.
give you tools and
Yeah.
resources to help you along, right?
Yeah.
But don't ask me. And then, like, sometimes, like, he'll ask me something and I'll ask him, do you really want the truth? He'll say, yeah. And then he'll get upset and he'll be like, well, that's not the answer I was looking for. Well, I'm sorry that that wasn't the answer that you're looking for, but that's the truth
But you know
as
what?
from where I
Real
see
talk,
it.
real talk. On
Right?
the funny note, women do the same thing. Hey, babe, you like this outfit? Tell me what you think. You like my hair today? Tell me what you think. And you're like, of course. Just of course. Not like, oh, it's great.
No, he'll
Yes,
say,
great. Like,
it's
this
fine.
is. But
It's
see,
fine.
men, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
fine.
It's learning
Like
how,
what?
it's
What does that
sometimes,
mean? It looks
sometimes,
great.
yeah.
Well, that's not what
What
you
does
said
that,
at
see what I
first. You
mean?
said it was
All that.
fine. What
But
does that
that's how
mean?
you have to work at communication. Understand what your spouse or what your, significant others wants to hear. Sometimes, what are you looking for in this answer,
Right.
But I think
And if
what,
you're trying to, let me just say this, if you're trying to get out of the house, don't ever tell your wife or significant other they look just fine. Because they will turn around and go back into the house, go back into the room, into the closet, and change their
tick tock.
clothes.
You can show up
Exactly.
all
Like,
late. You'll be an hour late. It's
exactly.
gonna be over
So
when you
you
get
better
there. Oh
embellish
my
if you want to be on
God.
time.
Yes. Y'all understand what I'm saying? It's crazy, right? So, but my point, what I'm trying to get at is that what we have learned, like her being in the field that she's in, me
Hmm.
being in the field I'm in,
Yeah.
obviously we have different,
Ways of
ways of
communicating
communicating.
sometimes depending on the
That
moment.
that is
Yes.
correct, and
Mhm.
we've had to work at that
Yeah.
as you have had to help me sometimes in settings. Say, look, you can't like, boom. You just got to let people know, like you can't
Hmm.
play around with this,
Because they'll be like, well,
and I have had
and
to help her,
then,
and
and
I have
oh,
had to
and
help.
it's
Yeah,
okay. And
yeah.
it's not. So then the person walks away, never
Never
changing,
changing.
never
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
adjusting
Owning, taking
because he
responsibility. Yeah,
never said the truth. He was like
yeah,
skirting around the issue. So he
yeah,
ends up getting stuck in situations
yeah.
that he could have gotten out of 6 months
And
ago.
I've had to help her understand that, wait a minute, don't just, all situations are not
Yeah.
blanket. Don't be
Yeah.
as, direct
Like,
because you
like
never know what people are
something
bringing to the
happened,
moment.
and then I was like getting
Horrified.
ready to send a text message, and he was like, "Wait, let me see what you're getting ready to send." And it was to me, it was kind, and he was like, "You can't send that to that person."
No.
And it wasn't that it was not that the text message was unkind. It
Yeah,
wasn't that. It was he recognized
that's right.
the space
That's right.
that that person was operating from and recognized the sensitivity um, and possibly past trauma that that person had previously experienced
Correct.
and understood in that moment how they would take it. And I was simply texting out of truth and love. And he was like, you know, you can't do that, right? Because that's going to make the situation explosive
Yeah.
as opposed to what you're trying to do, which is heal and come together in this moment. But I didn't understand that in that moment. But as soon as he said it, I was like, ooh, you're right. Delete, 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 delete. And so we actually work well together
Yeah. Yeah.
given our different forms of
Yeah.
communication and how we approach situations. I think it's more like, iron sharpens irons or just really just complementary. And so sometimes now, like he'll write an email that's like an important email, but before he pushes send, he'll call me, he'll say, Steph, can you read this? Is this what this needs to say? Is this very direct? And I'll sit there and I'll be like, mm-mm. And I won't send it for him. I'll make sure that he proofread it so that it's still his
Yeah.
voice,
Yeah.
but it's definitely getting the point across.
And
And I'll do the
likewise, same
same.
thing. Yeah.
So I'll start putting something down and he'll be like, mm-mm, you can't say that, baby.
Yeah. Ooh. So, I think what we're trying to get to you is the communication 2.0 is about really the intentionality of learning each
Hmm.
other's
Hmm.
way of communicating
Yes.
and being
Yes.
honest about what ways that person needs to communicate to you. Is it
Hmm.
important that you just get your message over, or is it important that you spend time thinking about the method by which you communicate that? Because you
Hmm.
can leave a trail of pain and trauma by just speaking to people, telling people what you're
Unknowingly.
unknowingly,
Yeah.
and people disassociate. And you're like, what did I do to you?
Yeah.
Why aren't you talking to
Yeah.
me today? And you
Yeah.
have those moments like, I didn't like the way you spoke to me. I like the way you said it. I'm like, I didn't mean that. You're thinking I didn't mean any harm. So
Hmm.
that's why it's important to have those real conversations. I know there's a couple watching now say, this is what we needed, this is what we needed, because
Right,
it
right, right.
happens in most
Yeah.
relationships, most
Yeah.
marriages, etc. And I think that's important. Communication is so key. And the reason why we want to lean in on this today with you is because we want you to understand, like, don't shut down. The person that God has assigned in your life is the person you should be able to share
Hmm.
most intimate moments with,
Hmm.
those things that, your dreams, your hopes. And
Hmm.
when you shut down, you rob that person of the journey that God would have you both go on.
And you rob yourself
Yeah.
of allowing that person to be your person, right?
Boom.
Allowing that person to be the person that you lean on in
Yeah.
those moments
Yeah.
of vulnerability.
And that's so true, right? So maybe you ought to kind of reset and maybe go back and have the conversation about how do you need me to communicate with you?
Hmm.
How do you
Hmm.
need me? What do you need me to do? How
Hmm.
do you need me to do? I need to tone it down, to be
Right.
more cognizant of my delivery with you? Do I need to, and what do I need to know about you in terms of when I communicate with you? What am I triggering? And
Mhm.
that's a deeper,
Yeah.
layered
Yeah. So
conversation.
instead of saying, when someone responds to what you're saying, "You're crazy. Why are you responding in
Ah,
that way?"
yeah,
Possibly pause and ask, "Are you okay? Like,
yeah,
how are you feeling? Like, how did what I say make you
that's
feel?
exactly right.
And then why? Is there something that I need to
Yeah,
know?"
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Because sort of opening that door, letting people know that you're willing to have that conversation, that you don't want to enter into that negative space,
yeah.
that you're willing to apologize, even if you didn't do
Do
anything
anything wrong?
wrong, right?
Gosh,
But it's
yes,
about the perception of wrong,
that's so true.
right?
And
So,
and and finally, I think it's about timing. It's about
yeah,
knowing, being
yeah,
being able to just know the time, being cognizant of the season that you may be
yeah.
in life or the
Hmm.
moment that may have happened. This, she's aware. Sometimes I can come in. I've just, had a funeral,
Hmm.
and it's a very emotional thing. I
Yeah.
come in. Yeah, she's very good at giving me that space. This isn't the time to be like, well, you haven't done so and so. You're
Right.
like, man, like for real. Like it's like, you have to know the timing
Yeah.
to communicate. She can come in off a very heavy day with the kids and meetings and doing things that she's doing, and she's exhausted. And I'm like, I'm trying to chat up something, and she's kind of like not in the mental space to process it. And I could be all offended and hurt until I understand like what happened to you, and that's really what Arthur Brooks was talking about. What happened to you? What
Mhm.
was your being willing to say what has happened? What is the story that brought you to the moment that allows me to communicate? And I want to be aware of that so that I know the timing to talk to you about it. Maybe you need space. Maybe sometimes the best form of communication is silence, just presence.
Mhm.
Presence sometimes can be
Just
the best.
listening.
Yeah,
Mhm.
listening. Just I don't want you to say that. Just listen to me. I don't need your opinion right now. I just want to vent. And sometimes you can open up your mouth and start giving your opinion about a person venting, you send them back down the rabbit hole of frustration. Like, oh my God, now you don't understand. Like, I just want you to listen. And so I think this is a ongoing thing. It's not something you will ever conquer
It's
because
about progress,
it's a
not
part, and
perfection.
you're forever changing like we are.
Mhm.
We're learning. And so if you ever around us and you see us, sitting up talking, it's because we're having those real conversations about how to communicate, and we haven't gotten it right completely, but we've come a long way. To God
Yeah,
be the glory,
for
huh?
sure.
Woo! These walls could talk. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, but we thank y'all so much for tuning in. And I hope this has blessed you. I really do. And communication is a key thing. And make sure you share this with folks you know that really struggle in this area, being heard or how to communicate, because we hope that it will help them get to the next level in terms of their relationship. So we thank you so much for tuning in today. Make sure you follow Dr. Steph again. Make sure you follow me. Let us know what you think. Make sure you comment right here in the comment section. It means a lot. Like, subscribe to all of that. Share with as many people as you can. We appreciate you so much. So make sure again you subscribe to this channel. We appreciate you again, and I cannot wait to get back on next week with another episode of Our Life, Our Journey, Our
Our
Truth.
truth.
I'm Bishop.
And I'm Dr. Steph.
Until next time, peace out.